it really came down to an incident in, I think it's end October 2021, with the police at my home, and then many, many years of litigation. And then after going public, a lot of local residents contacted me with similar issues regarding law enforcement. And then it just kind of expanded from there to whistleblowers from other, should we say, industries, other parts of the government, other organisations and whatnot. And it kind of just ballooned from there. Guernsey's quite, we're a small community. We're an island clinging to, well, near the coast of France, where we're called the Channel Islands. We're a small community, less than 65,000 people here. And the main problem is we don't have any independent and impartial oversight. So a lot goes on over here that people aren't aware of because of that, I believe. So that was one of the reasons. In fact, it was probably the main reasons of setting up the People's Trust in Guernsey, because I found that there wasn't a group that encouraged. Free speech is a very loaded phrase, isn't it? Free speech, and it can be defined in many ways. But I just felt that there were a lot of issues, and no one was discussing them openly, and that's pretty much why I set up the group. Bit of a long-winded way, but I hope it answers some of the questions and gives a bit of basic background about me.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I noticed it says on the website, I was reading the bio of it, it says why the People's Trust exists. And for those of you maybe listening to this, ladies and gentlemen, I'll read this extract from the website. It says, it's more than just a political group. It's a rallying point for those who believe that enough is enough. It's for those who feel that the time has come to act, to challenge the status quo, and to demand better for ourselves and future generations, for our children, their children, and those yet to come. It's a simple movement, apolitical, and they stand for one thing: transparent and accountable governance. And I think that's one of the things that we're really not seeing, especially on this side as well. In many areas of the UK, we've seen that it seems that every little thing, or even every big thing, especially in Britain at the moment, with some of the massive revelations that have recently come to light, it just seems that the government are doing everything they can to cover things up, or to not take people to task over, horrendous things that they've been doing. And I know you mentioned some of the ones. I was just making some notes on from one of the articles which you wrote on the People's Trust, and I believe it was one of the things I initially commented on when we had a little bit of correspondence on X a few months ago. I believe it was the case of a young girl who was told, I've got the note here somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
That
I think I know which one you're referring to.
Yeah, is you to keep them anonymous, you put them under as Miss A, Miss B, and Miss C in your article. And I think it was the case of where it went quite viral on TikTok, and it was put into the public eye. But it was a case of the police were telling this victim that it was probably a mistake what happened when she was attacked, and that, quote, "It's not rape because you didn't say no." That was what she was told, and I think that was the thing that caused me to comment on that. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that that's what the police was saying. But is this is what's going on? It seems very similar to what's going on in Britain. How bad are things like this over there, if you don't mind me asking?
Bad. I suppose it depends how you quantify bad. And I can't really give a fair comparison to England, not, living here all of my life. But it's not good. We have quite a lot of issues that really, I suppose in simple terms, boil down to a lack of training, and potentially, because again, we are a small community, so potentially for one of the issues may lie in a lack of decent candidates really for law enforcement. There's a certain type attracted to law enforcement. I don't think that's denied. I think it's only, or at least the problems from that are exacerbated in smaller communities, and especially compounded by the fact that the local police have no independent or impartial oversight. So, for example, in the England and Wales, you have the Independent Office for Police Conduct. We have nothing like that. We have something called the Police Complaints Commission, but it doesn't have any legislative power to change the decision of a police outcome. towards a complaint. So if you look at the relevant laws, there's two of them. If you look at them, it says that the Chief Officer of Guernsey Police is responsible for the outcome of all complaints. So the Professional Standards Department locally investigate themselves. That's no different from England and Wales. All of the Professional Standards Department are the starting place for police complaints. Where it diverges is the next step. I think in England, you have police complainants in England and Wales have the option of appealing first to the Chief Officer of Police. So the data I looked at, bearing in mind this is old data now, probably 2002, 2003, I think around about 15% of the time the chief officer would actually agree with a complainant, which I thought was quite good, actually. It was higher than I thought it would be. I didn't think that the chief officer of police would ever disagree with his staff, but evidently that's not true, at least in England and Wales. But then you also have the option of appealing to the Independent Office for Police Conduct. Now, I know that the IOPC has many controversies. I've read quite a lot about how they employ ex-police officers and stuff like that, and I don't really want to get into detail about that, because my main point is that we don't have anything like that at all. There's nothing independent from the police. So what happens if you appeal a police complaint in Guernsey? You appeal to the Police Complaints Commission. And if they uphold your appeal, and we'll get to that in a minute, all they do is pass back that complaint to exactly the same police officer who dealt with your complaint in the first instance.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I
So
see.
your appeal goes back to exactly the same police officer who determined the outcome of your complaint in the first instance. So no one new sees it.
Oh,
And then there's no appeal to that. So
oh, I
it's all
see.
handled in-house. So if you look at the laws, it's the Chief Officer of Police that determines the outcomes of all complaints, all appeals, and all disciplinary panels. And ultimately, there's no appeal to that. So that's the
Wow.
major
So
difference between Guernsey and the UK. Everything's handled in-house, law enforcement-wise.
yeah, instantly the idea that popped out of my mind as soon as you said that is almost like is this big circle, and where the complaint comes in and it ends up coming straight back to the same place that it started at, and then the big point is, as you mentioned, there's no I can't remember the exact term you use. I'm not familiar with the legal terminology too much myself, but there's no independent way to appeal against that. Am I right? Is that what you're they're getting at? That's the main difference, is that the chief officer is ultimately responsible for it, and that if you make a complaint, the complaint will eventually get referred back to the person who dealt with your complaint in the first place, and there's no way to independently not go against that, but appeal against that.
Yes, but we have to be very careful with the terminology and assumptions that we use. There
Yes, of
is
course.
a way you can appeal,
Okay.
which Home Affairs will consistently tell you.
Hmm.
You appeal to the Police Complaints Commission, but they have no legislative power to change the outcome of whatever the police say. They just hand it straight back to the police. They cannot
Right.
say, Mr. Police Officer, we don't agree with that. We want you to, well, they can, but the police can just ignore them. And if memory serves me correct, the Police Complaints Commission was set up in 2011. Since then, it has, well, I'll ask you a question. How many times, so we do have appeals, it does go to the Police Complaints Commission. Since 2011, how many times do you think that the Police Complaints Commission has upheld a complaint on the basis it doesn't agree with the police's decision? I.e., how many times has it sided with the public rather than the police? Just take a guess.
I'd like to say, based on the figure you gave earlier, if I'm right in saying earlier, you mentioned there was a figure of about 10 to 15%. Was it that they were
That
agreeing
was in
with
the
the
UK.
complaint? That was in the UK.
Yeah.
I'll sort of use that to sort of base my sort of decision off it. I'd like to see something similar, at least 10%, hopefully.
Zero. The
Zero.
PCC has never found fault with a police decision when it comes to the complaint. It's got a 100% track record.
So,
So one of the
right.
things with the PCC, the Police Complaints Commission in Guernsey, is so we have the Committee for Home Affairs and their remit, law enforcement falls under their remit. Also, the Police Complaints Commission falls under their remit. So the staff of the Police Complaints Commission work with the staff and work out of the offices of the Committee for Home Affairs, and it's funded by the Committee for Home Affairs.
Ah, I see.
So
I
there's
see.
no operational independence from the Committee for Home Affairs
Yeah.
at all, none. They have no legislative power whatsoever, and even if they did, they've never ever disagreed with the police. So it is a completely pointless organisation. In fact, I would go so far as to say its only point is to provide a facade or a smokescreen for the Committee for Home Affairs to go, look, you can appeal to the independent and impartial office for, the Police Complaints Commission, but it's not independent, it's not impartial, and in any case, it's not the one that has anything to do with the outcome of a complaint.
Yeah, and ultimately, as you said, not only is it finding 0% wrong with the police, as you mentioned, which was the bit that I didn't clock the first time, or due to a slight misunderstanding, is that they have no legal power anyway to like either overturn or to enforce anything. So,
I mean, they can
ultimately,
disagree with it. There is an option for the Police Complaints Commission to disagree with a police decision, and they can prefer, that's couched in legal terms, they can prefer a disciplinary panel, which basically says, like, we don't agree with it, we want a disciplinary panel. But the Chief of Police chairs the disciplinary panel. So again, it all comes down by law. The Chief of Police is accountable for every single complaint, appeal, and disciplinary panel on the island.